The cramped Florentine sick room lay heavy with the smell of vinegar and fear. Outside, the Black Death had already emptied streets and houses. Inside, a physician in a dark scholar's robe bent over a burning forehead, counting the labored breaths. When the patient suddenly burst into a violent sneeze, the doctor recoiled, traced the sign of the cross, and muttered a Latin blessing, as an assistant hurried to unbar the shutters to the choking summer air. Those few seconds carried a weight that exceeded mere bodily reflex. Many late medieval people believed that the soul hovered dangerously close to the openings of the head. A sneeze, erupting from chest to skull, seemed to threaten its escape. Prayers and blessings, spoken aloud at the very instant of the sneeze, were meant to keep the soul anchored, while open windows and doors offered a path for any malignant presence believed to have been shaken loose. Across 14th-century Europe, scholars and preachers taught that unseen forces coursed through the air and through human bodies. Some physicians explained sneezing as corrupted vapors being expelled from the brain, yet did not rule out demonic interference. Clergy warned that evil spirits might slip in during a sneeze, while others read a sudden outburst as a divine omen. In that Florentine room, body, soul, and spirits seemed to meet in one frightening, explosive crossroads. The narrative returned to the world of late antiquity, where Christian writers inherited both Roman medicine and biblical imagery. Gregory the Great described sudden illnesses and fevers as spaces where demons, sin, and divine punishment might intersect. Isidore of Seville later catalogued diseases and symptoms while still framing many abrupt bodily changes as consequences of hidden spiritual forces, blending classical learning with a deep suspicion of invisible personal agents at work in the flesh. Close-ups of manuscripts from the 6th to 9th centuries revealed how this language shaped everyday experience. Commentaries, sermons, and hagiographies spoke of nightmares, spasms, epileptic fits, and sudden sneezes as moments when spirits entered or departed the body. The same event could be interpreted as a demon's assault or as God's warning. Texts repeatedly returned to the head, the chest, and the breath as contested zones between health and corruption. Within monasteries, this worldview took concrete form in rules and penitentials. Regulations noted how monks should respond when a brother sneezed or suffered a fit during prayer, treating such disruptions as spiritually charged incidents rather than neutral reflexes. Sneezing in church demanded blessings, signs of the cross, or short prayers. These prescribed gestures reinforced the idea that the breath left the body through a vulnerable gateway, always open to divine grace or demonic intrusion. From the 11th to the 13th century, monastery infirmaries and the new urban hospitals became laboratories of medical thought. In dim scriptoria, monks and scholars copied freshly translated texts of Hippocrates, Galen, and Avicenna. Their pages described the head as a vessel filled with vapor and humors, where cold, thick substances might clog the passages. Illuminated diagrams of skulls and noses appeared beside Latin glosses, explaining how sneezing expelled these excesses from the brain. In a reconstructed consultation, a university-trained physician bent over a shivering patient. He had learned in Salerno, Montpellier, or Bologna that the body balanced 4 humors, and that congestion in the head signaled an overload of cold, phlegmatic matter. From a small box he produced pungent powders and sharp-smelling herbs. Applied to the nostrils, these irritants provoked a sudden sneeze. The doctor calmly interpreted it as a deliberate therapy, nature's own effort to purge harmful humors and noxious vapors. Yet marginal notes in the same manuscripts hinted at another layer of meaning. Some commentators warned that invisible spirits might ride within exhaled vapors and corrupted airs. A violent fit of sneezing, especially when joined with convulsions, delirium, or sudden fever, seemed to many observers more than merely natural. University medicine officially praised sneezing as a useful bodily function, but allowed that demons could exploit bodily weaknesses, turning an otherwise healthy reflex into a sign of occult disturbance. Across the German-speaking lands, surviving manuscripts from the 13th and 14th centuries showed how closely sneezing had been tied to invisible forces. Viewers saw charms written in Latin and the vernacular, where a sudden sneeze from the head or chest accompanied appeals to drive out böse Geister, evil spirits believed to lurk inside. In these brief, formulaic texts, a sneeze often appeared as the hoped-for sign of expulsion and relief. In England, the camera moved back to earlier Anglo-Saxon healing, then forward into later medieval practice. Passages from the Lachnunga collection and related recipes described healers standing over patients racked by repeated sneezes. Christian invocations, fragments of Latin prayers, and crosses traced in the air turned the sick room into a small ritual space. Persistent, uncontrollable sneezing was read not merely as a bodily symptom, but as evidence that some spiritual presence resisted departure. In parts of France and the Low Countries, reconstructed interiors evoked accounts preserved in miracle collections and private letters. Candles had been lit, windows shuttered, and relics or blessed objects placed near the bed. During exorcisms and healing rites, a sudden burst of sneezing drew intense attention. Onlookers interpreted it as the demon's path of escape through nose and mouth. While cautious theologians often avoided such claims, everyday ritual practice treated sneezing as a visible, tangible exit of spirits. In the press of medieval streets and marketplaces, a single sneeze often broke the noise of the crowd. Heads turned and a quick murmur rose, Deus te adiuvet, Dieu te aide, God help you, Deo te aiuti. These short blessings, spoken in Latin or the local tongue, framed the sneeze as a moment of mortal risk. People believed the abrupt halt in breathing briefly loosened the soul's grip or opened the body to a passing demon. This instinctive chorus of blessings had been shaped and reinforced by the Church. Canon law collections and pastoral manuals urged the faithful to invoke divine help at any sudden sign of illness, fear, or danger. Short prayers at a sneeze fit this pattern. What likely began as improvised protections in daily life gradually appeared in written guidance as clergy systematized these habits into recommended practice, turning ordinary words into a tiny, ever-ready exorcism. Hagiographic accounts described saints tracing the sign of the cross over sneezing demoniacs, presenting the sneeze as a point of contact between body and spirit. Blessings guarded the mouth and nose, seen as vulnerable openings where harmful vapors, or worse, spirits might pass. Medical and moral advice warned against stifling sneezes, arguing that trapped corrupt airs could worsen headaches, frenzy, or even possession, so the sneeze had to be released and ritually contained in prayer. The chapter opened in dim great halls and low-roofed cottages, where bowls of pepper, rue, mustard, and sharp-smelling herbs lined shelves like defensive weapons. Medieval physicians and apothecaries had ground these plants into fine powders, then funneled them into the nostrils of the unwell. According to learned authorities, a violent sneeze shook loose corrupt airs and malignant influences that supposedly lodged in the head, clouding thought and spirit alike. The narration turned to the Antidotarium Nicolai and later pharmacological compilations where sternutatories, sneeze-inducing remedies, appeared beside purges and bloodletting. Such powders were recommended for lethargy, certain forms of melancholy, and even melancholic madness. Physicians wrote of thick humors and rising vapors, yet theologians and preachers often glossed these conditions as the work of temptation or the first shadow of possession, blurring medical imbalance with spiritual danger. Manuscript margins preserve that overlap between body and soul. Some notes praised sternutatories for driving away evil thoughts. Others hinted that a strong sneeze might dislodge a clinging demon. A 15th-century German medical book depicted a priest-physician blowing medicinal powder into a patient's nose during an exorcism. The expected sneeze served as both therapy and sign, imagined as expelling diseased humors and any infernal presence that had fastened itself to the sufferer. In the dim interiors of churches and at the crowded shrines of healing saints, sneezing often stood at the center of dramatic confrontations with the demonic. Depositions from 13th-century canonization processes describe the scenes in careful detail. At the tomb of Thomas Becket, or in inquiries about Elizabeth of Hungary, witnesses recalled convulsive patients brought before the altar, twitching, howling, or collapsing as priests began the solemn words of exorcism or healing prayers. At the height of these rites, something physical usually marked the turning point. Records from later inquiries concerning the cult of Bernardino of Siena mentioned sufferers who suddenly sneezed or coughed with startling violence at the climax of an exorcism. Observers swore they noticed sudden foul odors or a new harsh voice bursting out with the sneeze. These eruptions were interpreted as the very moment when the unclean spirit tore free from its human host. Contemporary exorcism manuals revealed what clergy expected to see. The rite unfolded through prayers, litanies of saints, and the solemn display of relics pressed close to the face of the afflicted. Priests watched intently for bodily signs, vomiting, spasms, or explosive sneezing that confirmed the demon's departure. Yet theologians like Thomas Aquinas urged caution, insisting that natural causes had to be weighed against preternatural ones, even as ordinary believers trusted the sneeze as visible proof. The image shifted to narrow, crowded streets where the air seemed thick with fear. During outbreaks of plague and lesser epidemics, sneezing no longer appeared as a simple bodily reflex, but as a sinister omen. Chroniclers of the Black Death, including Giovanni Boccaccio, described fits of sneezing, coughing, and sudden nosebleeds as early signs that an invisible poison had taken hold, marking out those whom death had already chosen. The narration traced how the ancient theory of miasma, or poisoned air, merged with long-standing demonology. Pestilential winds were imagined as almost alive, swarming through streets and houses like armies of devils. They slipped in through breath and nostrils, corrupting blood and spirit together. In their plague consilia, physicians in Paris, Pavia, and other cities recommended aromatic vinegars, sponges, and pomanders held to the nose to strain both toxic vapors and possible evil presences. Inside churches and during outdoor processions, bursts of sneezing in the crowd took on a terrifying symbolism. Preachers in sermons warned that such fits showed God had permitted malign forces to scourge humanity, turning every cough into a moral warning. The old hope remained, that a sneeze might drive demons out of the body, but it now carried a new dread. The very act of expulsion also signaled dangerous contagion to everyone standing nearby. By the later Middle Ages, the centers of medical learning had shifted decisively to the universities. In Padua, Paris, and Leipzig, masters of medicine lectured beneath vaulted ceilings, reading Aristotle and Galen line by line. Commentaries multiplied, and with them came a more precise vocabulary for the head and its functions. Sinuses, nerves, and passages of air were described in increasingly technical Latin as sneezing became a subject for physiology rather than for miracle stories. Anatomical diagrams, refined through repeated copying and correction, now portrayed the head as a dense mesh of channels. Ink lines mapped the routes of humors, spirits, and air, suggesting a more mechanical circulation. Within this framework, 15th and early 16th century physicians began to qualify older claims. Many still allowed that demons might disturb the body in rare cases of possession, but they no longer treated every sneeze as evidence of a fleeing spirit. At the same time, demonologists redirected the supernatural gaze. The Malleus Maleficarum and similar treatises concentrated less on everyday bodily events and more on allegations of pacts, sabbaths, and sexual congress between witches and demons. Learned anxiety moved from noses to covenants, from sneezes to conspiracies. The idea of sneezing as involuntary exorcism faded from academic medicine, lingering instead in blessings, charms, and the oral traditions of village healers and households. The narrative returned to the crowded sanctuaries and dim infirmaries of the Middle Ages, where a sneeze rarely passed unnoticed. In illuminated margins from the 13th century, artists had sketched tiny hunched figures expelling a sudden gust, while a horned demon fled from their mouths. These images echoed sermons and popular belief alike. The sneeze marked a narrow threshold, a moment when body and soul seemed briefly unfastened and dangerously exposed. Across Latin Christendom, a murmured blessing followed that perilous instant. Formulae such as Deus te adiuvet, or their vernacular airs, functioned as quick verbal charms, guarding against invading demons, corrupted air, and even the imagined escape of the soul. As medical learning absorbed Galenic texts and later Arabic commentaries, physicians increasingly described sneezing as a natural exhalation. Yet the old words remained on people's lips, even as their original explanations faded. The camera finally revisited the Florentine sick room. The physician, once tense, eased his shoulders after the sneeze. Relatives traced hurried signs of the cross. Shutters stayed open to the winter air that was thought to drive away infection. Over this scene, the narration underlined how, for medieval observers, a sneeze was never a simple reflex, but an exposed opening in which disease, demons, and divine aid briefly met. An opening still dimly recalled whenever someone said, "Bless you."